Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today I'm going to do a brief history of the Ocean City Manufacturing Company, the one that's made a lot of fishing reels that have appeared in my videos over time. And I thought I would introduce you to the history behind the company, and I'm going to be relying a lot on a book by Mike Cassiapo. And this one I got through Orca's library, but it is available online. And if you want the definitive history, kind of a blow-by-blow presentation of the company, you want to read more, then I certainly recommend this as the best resource that I've found on its history. Mike has done a great job of compiling early information from the 1922 when the company was founded to 1957 when it was sold off to True Temper in a stock swap kind of a thing. But you'll learn a lot about their freshwater, their saltwater, their bait casting reels and the like through this book. And in the back, interestingly enough, is the catalogs year by year and pricing of the reels. So a lot of times folks will ask me, when was this reel made, or what was the price made on it, or things like that. And this is a great resource for that if you happen to be interested. So all the credit in the world to Mike Cassiapo. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Ocean City Manufacturing Company, its history, what it made, and why it eventually was sold. And we're going to start back in the turn of the century, that being the 1890s into 1900. You had two folks that were partners, Louis Moskowitz and Louis Herbach. They were partners in M&H Sporting Goods in Philadelphia. And they developed a successful sporting goods chain selling all kinds of stuff. And as fishing became popular, they were purchasing some fishing reels. And in 1922, they decided to enter into a collaboration and start making the reels themselves. And early on, they were working with some of the most well-known and respected reel designers in collaboration at the time. And that included Meek, it included Edward von Hoff, who developed the Star Drag system. It included Meiselbach, which was a company in Newark, New Jersey, and others. And basically what they did was they contracted the first few reels through them, and then they decided to go into manufacturing for themselves. The first reel that they made was actually the Dover Club, and the Dover Club was part of a branding name called Ike Walton. And Ike Walton, it turns out, was an early conservationist. Back in the late 1500s, he was an author, and he was one of the first to introduce the idea of sport fishing in addition to just fishing for food. And a lot of what you see on the table here are the results of a lot of engineering designs, some of them very interesting, some of them copies, and some of those, or all of those, very well made, high material content, high engineering, and they've stood the test of time. So the fans out there that like the Ocean City reels will appreciate some of the work that goes on here. So in 1922, Louis Moskowitz, along with his son and his son-in-law, decided that they were going to start the Ocean City Manufacturing Company. And that Ocean City Manufacturing Company was going to dedicate itself to making fishing reels. And they were going to do that in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And they did. And some of the earliest reels were big game reels. This is one that's a little bit later. This one's from the 30s, but I think maybe some of you have seen this before. But this is an Ocean City long key. They had a Balboa series, and they had some other series in that as well. But they were dedicated to making ocean reels, and very strong and enduring reels at that. So this one's probably the size of a 9.0 reel. In the early 20s, when I first introduced these reels were not cheap. They were $12 in 1920, which I think if you do the compounding of inflation and the like is over $500 today. So their reels were highly valued, and they cost a lot, particularly during the Depression. So they started in the saltwater business, and again in collaboration with Edward von Hoff. They also made some freshwater ones. In this case, I'm showing you a Meiselbach reel. This is the free spool tripart by Meiselbach, but Meiselbach being a Newark, New Jersey manufacturer. This one was around 1920, but the almost identical reel showed up in an Ocean City catalog, and it was called the Easy Part. And almost part by part, it's the same reel. Ironically, as Ocean City developed over time, they started being the manufacturer to other brand names. We call them trade reels by this nature, but they would make reels for Sears and Macy's. The Sears J.C. Higgins line, for the most part, is all Ocean City. One that I kind of found was very interesting was that they made reels for A&I, Abbey and Emery. Abbey and Emery was a New York State sporting goods firm, and Ocean City made a lot of their reels and branded them as AI reels. And a lot of you will find AI reels out in the marketplace today, and know that that was made by Ocean City. I also had the opportunity, and some of you saw my video, where I did a reel called the Schultz fishing reel, and that was a Ocean City reel as well. And then finally, interestingly enough, this one is called the St. Clair with the spelling C-L-A-I-R-E. Well, in the 30s, Ocean City made a St. Clair without the E, C-L-A-I-R, and then they made the one with the E on it as a trade reel that was sold in hardware stores and auto goods retailers and the like, but they just made that minor change to it, but underneath this reel is an Ocean City reel. So let's talk a little bit about how this evolved. They started with a love for saltwater fishing. They made very well engineered and relatively high-priced reels. And those designs didn't change much over time. Now this one's a little bit later. This is an Ocean City 112. I actually just did a video on a different one of these, but this is a 112. They had a little bigger reel called the 113. They also had a Bay City. These were kind of all in the same line, the Bay City. And these things were as popular as could be, and you can find these today at flea markets and online and eBays and the like. But if you go back in time, the earlier versions were, this one is a free spool. This one was sold in the 1930s. You'll notice the Bakelite handle, the German silver side plate, and of course everything about this thing just says high quality and good engineering behind them. And I actually have an interesting one here as well. This one was in the late 30s. This one was called the Ocean City Zephyr, and believe it or not, it was named Zephyr not because it's made of an alloy called Zephyloy. So I've never heard of that one. I probably have to go do a little bit of look on it. But this one found its way into one of the lots I had purchased at one time. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So in the 30 in the catalogs, you saw a lot of big game reels. You had the Balboa. You had that long key that I was talking about, the 9.0. And interestingly enough, the 30s is probably more known for losing one of its key employees at Ocean City, Otto Heinz. And Otto went on to found the Penn Fishing Reel Company. He was an engineer at Ocean City, and he thought that the Ocean City reels were too pricey, that they weren't reaching the general population, and that he kind of had a motto that said, "Make it simple, make it affordable." And he set out to make the Penn reels. And by the 50s, Ocean City was neck and neck with Penn. And later in the decade, Penn survived, and Ocean City merged on with another company, True Temper, because its business model was failing. So let's just take a quick look here at some of the things in their history. As I mentioned, they were collaborative in the beginning. So this is a Meiselbach. They worked with Edward von Hoff. And interestingly enough, von Hoff, as I mentioned, was credited with the star drag system. That would be this one, the star drag adjuster. And in 1941, Ocean City actually bought the von Hoff company and created the von Hoff division as part of their piece. They were a saltwater company, and because they were a sporting goods store, they decided they wanted to get into the freshwater marketplace as well, and they acquired a company called Sturdy-Bilt. And Sturdy-Bilt made little bait casting reels, and they made a fly reel as well. It was called the Juanita fly reel, but it added and expanded to their lines. And those reels that were acquired in the 30s became very popular thereafter. And in the 40s, they acquired a company called Fox. And Fox also made some bait casting reels along the way. So they did support the freshwater market. They also supported the fly market. This is a number 81. It's just a very economical reel. I think when it was introduced, it sold for 60 cents. And this is probably the one that they were more well known for, the Ocean City 1600 in that category. In 1953, they was post-World War II, and they felt a need to develop the spinning reel, which was becoming popular. Until that time, the reels that you saw in front of you there, they were the popular formats for the reel. And when the GIs came back from Europe, they brought back with them some spinning reels that they had found in Europe. Of course, at the time, Mitchell was making them, and so was Luxor and some others. And they decided they were going to get into the market for spinning reels. This is one of the reels they made. It wasn't the first, but this is the Ocean City 300. The first one, interestingly enough, was called an Ocean City International 100. And the International 100 was probably the start of their demise, because it was an exact copy of the Mitchell 300 reel, and it was made by Ino Seiko in Japan. So think of that. In the 1950s, Ocean City went to Japan to have a spinning reel built for them that they would go market. And I think as we saw the rise of the Japanese manufacturing of fishing equipment in the 60s and 70s, kind of displaced Ocean City and other U.S. manufacturers, to the point where today almost all of the fishing reels are made by big conglomerates offshore. So the spinning reel was the 300. It's a beautiful design. It's a very interesting design. It's different from what a lot of the reels are, but that was their foray into the spinning reel market. So what happened was, in the mid-50s, Ocean City remained committed to very high-quality reels like this 112, costly parts, and over-engineered. So anybody who takes these apart realizes and recognizes very easily that these are well-made reels. Well, Penn was doing the keep it simple and keep it affordable act at half the price of an Ocean City. You were getting increasing pressure from the Asian markets, and Ocean City simply became unprofitable. And what they did in 1957 was they sold their division to True Temper. And True Temper was making fishing rods. They were into the fiberglass rods at the time, and all kinds of sporting equipment. So True Temper bought them, and True Temper ran with a lot of the models that you would see, except that they changed it, and this one isn't one of those, but they changed the badging. Instead of saying Ocean City, it maintained the model number, but it did not have Ocean City on it. It had True Temper on it. Here's an example of that. It's kind of a funky old reel. This reel, if you break the pole, you're done with the reel, basically. But this is a True Temper reel. It's the 63L, and this one was actually going against a Zebco kind of a reel. Very interesting in design. Thumb working in the for the release and casting, and then shutting it down. So this was the closed face reel that True Temper had developed and brought to market. Unfortunately, the rod broke. Somebody clipped it off here, and this is just kind of a souvenir or a museum piece to show those pieces at the time. But by the 57, True Temper comes in. True Temper is almost like a Pure Fishing today, in that there was a conglomerate of a lot of different businesses. And by the 70s, the Japanese manufacturing and other low-cost models that were out there put the reel business out of business, if you will, and that was kind of the end of the Ocean City story. So if you find an Ocean City reel and it's branded as Ocean City, you're going to know that the reel was manufactured before 1958. There could have been some carryovers into 58 and 59, maybe getting rid of surplus inventory, but for the most part, the legacy Ocean City reels were rebranded as True Temper going forward, and the brand went out of business. So they did an awful lot to bring modern fishing equipment. There's a whole bunch of designs and innovations that were part of that legacy. There was a wide range of reels, dressing everything from 66-cent reels to reels that in the 1920s would be the equivalent of $500 reels today. And there truly are fan favorites because the engineering has stood the test of time. The materials used in them have been solid and well built, and interestingly enough, it's what it led to its downfall as the cost of the materials increased and the price of fishing reels were going down. So that's a brief history. Louis Moskowitz and Louis Herbach, M&H Sporting Goods in Philadelphia, turn of the century, 1900. Start building their own reels around 1922. Have a good run, 35 years. And decide they're going to sell out to True Temper. True Temper runs it for another 10 to 20 years. By the 70s, the brand and True Temper as well is gone, and you can't find any new reels by them anymore. So I hope you've enjoyed this brief overview of the Ocean City Fishing Company. I hope you've learned something from it. Again, I'm going to thank Mike Cassiapo. If you are really interested in learning a lot more, or just seeing the old catalogs, or seeing the pricing, or you want to use it as a reference source to find out when the reel was made and being sold, well, then I would certainly recommend that you go out on the internet and find the book. The book is called Ocean City Fishing Reels, A Collector's Guide, 1922 to 1957. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. And if you subscribe, please hit the notification, as you'll see me working on repairing some of these reels or tuning them up. As I mentioned, I just did the one on the 112. And occasionally I will do histories of fishing companies. And I think the next one I might do is Mitchell. I know a lot of people know a lot about Mitchell, but a lot of people don't. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about Mitchell in the next time I get to do a history of fishing reel companies. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.